And that's graphics cards. Y'all like graphics cards?
Graphics cards.
Graphics
A lot to say about
cards.
graphics cards this week.
All right. Well,
All right. This is where I step in.
it sure is. Nvidia says around 1 in 200 of its new Series G50 GPUs are missing some render units. What's a render unit, Bronson?
Basically, it's what makes it so the pixels appear on the screen.
Okay.
It's that is the most lame in it, like just dumbed down. This is the last step where it says, here, we're displaying your shit and making sure it's right. That's about as much as I can dumb it down. And
Would you describe it as a unit that renders things?
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
You are good job. you get a gold star, Duncan.
Yay.
Anyway, so yeah, 100-200 GPUs in the current 50 series are experiencing this. In fact, I was actually on the PCMR Reddit, and someone was just like, "Oh fuck," and posted their lottery loss of being one of those people.
Oh man.
So yeah, and then this is kind of bad because it affects performance in a meaningful way. Because it can be 5% performance loss is what they're saying, though depending on the game, that could mean up to 10 to 15 FPS loss.
Okay.
Which is kind of insane because all of these graphics cards that are currently out are $750 or more.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say,
assuming you can get one.
That statistic that you point out of the 10 to 15 frame is specifically in reference to a drop from like 85 frames down to 170. So it's obviously inflated at higher frame rates because it's a percentage of your overall performance.
Yes. And then also the fact that if you have a high refresh rate monitor, though, that matters to you because you want to be able to lock at let's say my monitor is 170 hertz refresh rate. If I want to lock at 170, but I'm and the game can lock at 180, but I'm losing 15 frames, then it's a problem.
Then you're tipping under.
And also you're paying an insane amount of money for a GPU. It shouldn't have this problem of if you are 0.5% of the users are going to get a 4% on average worse experience. Like that's really shit. How did it happen?
Like how do these units literally ship out of there's a piece in it not there?
So this is, I can give you, I don't entirely know, but this is from my understanding, which is not like, I'm not an engineer. I've never been to one of these fabs. I highly recommend going and looking at like the Linus Tech Tips, they got to say graphic card advocator, and they did 2 or 1. Basically, what it is they make a whole shit ton of chips and they look at the yields, and the yields are like, oh, this is good enough to be a 5090. This is good enough to be a 5080. This is good enough to be a 5070 Ti. This is good enough to be a 5070. That's not good at all. We can't use that for anything. Throw it in the trash. That's e-waste. And they go and make it. So I am guessing at some point in the production line, something fucked up and something got missed on the quality check and checking everything. Like that's, unfortunately, everything is made by humans still. So they're not perfect. Some dude was tired at the factory. Then that's what happened. The real crazy part is I also think NVIDIA is kind of half-assing their GPU efforts because I actually saw a breakdown of where NVIDIA's revenue comes from. From like 2 years ago, it was like 60% video cards, 40% data centers. And then like a year ago, it was like 50-50. And now it is like 85% data center, 15% GPUs.
Oh.
They make big data money.
Okay.
Yeah, like NVIDIA is now an AI/server company, not a That's what they are now. They are that happens to make graphics cards. Hold on, I can pull up the chart. I finally found it.
Okay.
Yeah, like it was.
I
This
recall,
isn't.
isn't it that a big part of that business model though is that they like own the infrastructure to effectively the best cards for the specific things that they're creating servers for, and therefore they're able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
create
for yeah. They
server-specific
own.
cards that are like super fucking good at like running AI.
Yeah, they basically make by far the best AI cards. But yeah, like in quarter 1 of last year, it was, you know, it was like it started to go in favor from, like actually no, quarter 2 of 2023. It was like kind of close, and then like you look at right now, and it's insane. Like it's
Are
absolutely
are server farm AI dedicated cards even like actually graphic cards, or are they like made completely differently architecturally to specifically focus on that mode of data like processing?
okay. So they are close enough. They're
Hmm.
very close. They're very, very close because of the way that graphics card calculate math. It's very similar to the way an AI farm would. And then current video cards have a bunch of AI shit on them and compute
Ah,
units for AI style shit. So they are very efficient at AI.
agreed.
That's kind of where that comes from. I will say that in terms of Nvidia, like it used to be you could honestly use a professional level graphics card like a Quadro for gaming. I don't know where
Yeah.
that's at now. But yeah, like but you look at this revenue chart, dude, it's crazy. It's like they make they made 35 or sorry, $350 million in 1 quarter on data center, and then
$2.
two sorry, what?
That's a couple dollars. That's a few.
And then yeah, and then or sorry, is that uh, money in millions? That cannot be right. Oh, excuse
That's
me.
35 billion
That's
580
35
million.
billion.
Oh God.
Yeah, 35 bill. This is in 1 quarter. 35 billion for data center, 2.5 billion for gaming, 1.2 billion for everything else they touch.
Also, like,
Uh
1 quarter to the next, they lost a ton of gaming revenue.
yeah, that's a lot of people are taking a guess that's because they started cutting stock on 40 series to get ready for
Mm,
50 series. So when people went out and wanted to buy a graphics card, they would only have 50 series as the option and wouldn't have a bunch of surplus of other stuff.
I see.
Um but yeah, this whole 50 series launch has been hampered by a bunch of shit like this ROP thing. In the case of the 5090, if you buy a founders edition, there are issues that could cause it to set fire if you don't plug in the power connector correctly. Yeah, so there's that problem.
Good.
And
Good.
then outside of the 5090, it's not particularly a big performance jump. Like the 5090 is a huge performance jump over the 4090 and every other graphics card in existence. But the 5080, 5070 Ti, both very minimal performance jumps, like 10% in the case of the 5080 and like 15% in case of the 5070 Ti over their 40 series counterparts. So that's been a big problem. Let's see what else was on their list. Price and unavailability. You can't get these things. Like
Yeah.
you cannot go on any Newegg, Best Buy, wherever. And I'm sure that if you check a stock ticker right now, like I have a website that checks stock on electronic stuff because I buy a lot of electronic stuff, and it's yeah, dude. Like I guarantee you, a 5080 has not been in stock on most of these websites since like the middle of February. It's been 2 weeks.
eBay
Occasionally one
though.
will. Yeah, if you're willing to pay. I was on Facebook Marketplace and I saw a dude out in the Bay Area was posted at 5080 for $1,600, and I'm like, that's actually kind of low from what I've seen from most scalpers right now. And then you read it, it's like, yeah, lost my job, need to make money, need to get this out the door quick.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's scalpers got most of these. There's a ton of stock issues. You can't, the quote I keep hearing from Linus Tech Tips and other places, it's made of unobtainium. Can't buy them.
Great.
So there's that. There's stock issues. There's power connector issues. There's the ROP issues. There's there was something else in there. Pricing's fine generally. Oh yeah, sorry. The pricing on the Founders Editions may be one thing, but most of the people, the issue is the other way around, where they have to buy from a board partner, and those are $100 to $200 more expensive. So your $1,000 5080 is really $1,100 to $1,300, depending on what board partner card you want. Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, like there's a lot going on with these things that where the 50, like this is the most underwhelming launch that I can think of for a graphics card in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes to like, if this gives you an idea of the time frame since like 2003.
Right.
The last time they had a launch go this badly was 2003. And then last gen was like okay, like it because the 4000 series kind of got crapped on for price. But that was really the only like crazy bad thing about it. That and the 5090 had this power connector issue because Nvidia refuses to acknowledge that this power connector on the 90 Founders Editions is terrible.
Good.
So yeah, like that's kind of where that is at the moment. And yeah, that's kind of one of, and oh yes, and this goes to the next news story.
It sure
I
does.
forgot about this issue.
The
Also,
next story is that with the RTX 50 series cards not supporting 32-bit PhysX, some owners are taking to shoving a secondary card in their rig just to run older games better.
so this list of games isn't huge. It's like 200 games, and it's games released from like 2008 to 2012. Because all those games, so PhysX was a NVIDIA specific software that makes it so physics runs better. And you turn it on, and in a lot of games, it like works great. It works fine. It looks good. They took out 32-bit support from the 50 series. They just took it out to save space on the board for other stuff. I'm assuming AI compute would be my guess. That is my guess. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
sure.
So on the 5090, you're getting like 28 FPS in Mafia 2. You're getting 61 FPS in Arkham Asylum with CPU enabled PhysX. Versus if you turn that on, if you get a PhysX dedicated card, like a 3050, or even a 1030, you're tripling or doubling that FPS. Because yeah, they took out 30. They got rid of, on the 50 series cards, 32-bit support entirely. So that kills 32-bit PhysX. And yeah,
funniest one here. Batman Arkham Asylum 61 to 390. That's 6.5 times faster.
And the thing is this is not uncommon, by the way, or this is uncommon now, but back in the day it wasn't uncommon. So PhysX was super popular, but it it had the issue of being a performance hog at the time. So people would buy like a cheap graphics card that supported it and just have it be the PhysX card. That's it. Like they would have and that's now what people are doing because of this.
Because they really love Black Flag.
They really like Borderlands 2 and Batman Arkham Asylum and Mirror's Edge.
Are you guys aware that Borderlands 2 still has an active community?
Yeah.
A little weird.
1 and 3 don't, but 2, it does.
The most interesting part about this is like, regardless, even with a GT 1030 on a card that like they test it with a 3080 Ti, which does support physics. It's getting high frames across the board, but they go significantly higher when you offload the physics to the potato that is known as the GT 1030.
It makes me think that physics might just have like a quirk that makes it just better if it's offloaded.
It probably does, like, because whatever graphics card is running it only has to worry about the compute with that. But like, it's still funny.
Yeah,
It's still really funny.
Yeah.
it's pretty
Ridiculous.
funny.
Ugh.
But yet another reason why the 50 series is very reviled right now. I chose a great year to build a computer. Everybody,
Yeah, you did.
I chose a real good one. The real funny part is related to the next news story. In regards to AMD, their competitor, unfortunately, where the tier of video card I shop at, due to my want for 4K, basically means that these awesome new AMD cards are not entirely viable for me. But I'll get into that in a minute.
Oh man, should we move over to that just to talk about the competition and
I feel like it's fitting.
see where that's
Tell us
at?
about
Yeah.
AMD.
Yeah,
Oh, whoop.
AMD, these nuts. All right. Anyway, sorry, I had to say it. I had to say
You
it.
had to say it. You had to say
it
it.
needed to be said.
Oh,
it needed
IGN
to
is
be
terrible. Good lord.
said.
Yeah.
Hit us with that headline, Bronson.
Yeah, the AMD RX 9070 XT has been revealed, and the 9070. It is coming out. So it was unveiled at CES. They didn't say much about it, performance or any like news. They're built on a new architecture, RDNA 4. This is a big uplift in machine learning performance and AI accelerators, much more powerful than their previous RDNA 3 cards. In the 7900 XT, they're the driving force behind their updated AI upscaler, which is known as FSR. They're on FSR 4. Similar to NVIDIA DLSS, it uses machine learning to upscale the image. They talk about the specs and the release date in this story, at least. That said, the thing I want to get into is the price. These cards are priced at $600 and $550 respectively.
Oh.
These are like
Very reasonable.
actually very reasonable, and they're supposed to be competing with the 5070 Ti and the 5070. So the fact that this thing is $150 cheaper, you would hope that it would get people interested. And then as far as performance goes, they are saying they are beating on average the 5070 Ti by an average of 2%. Now these are the words straight from AMD's mouth. But yeah, no, this is good for them. This is very good for them. Yep.
Putting it in terms that are directly applicable to me, I have a 4080 graphics card.
Mhm.
If I
Yep.
were to stick one of these in my machine instead, would I be seeing a reasonable performance increase, you think? Or like, is it not that much?
So in your case, no. I think that even in Aaron's case, not enough to justify spending $600. I also think that because Aaron's on a 3080 Ti, and my take on this thing is, I think that this is awesome. It supposedly is as good as the 5070 Ti, which is about where a 4080 actually is. But you know, with AMD, there's always a bunch of caveats. First off, is we don't know if this is true until the benchmarks hit, as with any video card, because we found out they were full of shit on the 5070 Ti and the 5080 in NVIDIA's case. And AMD could also be very full of shit.
Right.
So that is something to
There's certainly incentivized to do so.
Yeah, like that's something that I always want people to keep in mind when new video cards get announced. Wait for review benchmarks from the real deal, like Lions Tech Tips, Gamers Nexus, those people, because they will not be full of shit. In the case of all these other people, they're full of shit. That's kind of the thing. Like, one thing about this is AMD has typically been behind in ray tracing in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And then this apparently is 42% faster ray tracing over previous generation.
Okay.
So that's a big lift for them.
Yeah.
It's 38% faster in gaming. The problems with AMD, and that said 1440p at 4K, it's 21% faster. Average across 30 games. Now, the problems with AMD though kind of come from a couple other places. They fixed one of these problems off the bat, which is they kind of have a reputation for being Nvidia, but $50 cheaper and slightly worse. That's kind of what they've been known for.
Right.
And last gen, they kind of tied them in raster, but it got their clock cleaned in terms of but they got their clock cleaned in terms of ray tracing and their upscaler FSR versus DLSS.
Right. So
Yeah.
we got to see.
So
Got to see what these are like, and just I don't know, man.
So, with that in mind, I think that if what they are saying about their upscaler is true, they might finally match DLSS, which is becoming more and more important these days as people lean on it to actually run 4K and run 1440p in some cases, depending on the game, of course.
Mm.
And then on top of that, you have to factor in the ray tracing. All right, are they going to finally match NVIDIA and ray tracing as ray tracing becomes more needed? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Indiana Jones both require ray tracing. It is the only lighting in those games. And I think that's a start because it makes development easier and in some cases cheaper because you don't have to bake lighting for a bunch of scenes. Or at least not bake them as much, I should say. And then the next big thing they need to catch up in is stability and software. Hey, I'm pretty sure everyone here is using NVIDIA Broadcast. Is that correct?
Yes.
I am.
Yeah. So the AMD equivalent of that sucks ass. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. It's not good. Don't recommend it. AMD noise suppression is a joke. It's just to kind of check a box to say, hey, it exists. We have that too. And then the other big thing is stability. AMD drivers seem to be a person-to-person experience on whether or not they're stable. Every single person I know who has an AMD graphics card, some people say completely stable. It works fine. I don't know what you're talking about. Some people are like, this shit crashes all the time. Don't know what causes it. This sucks. So yeah, that's kind of where they're at. And then last part is hey, it's 16 gigs of VRAM. I feel for a $600 card, that's actually fair. I'm not gonna harangue them for that. My beef is with Nvidia only offering 16 gigs of VRAM in a $1,000 graphics card.
Right.
Looking at you, 4080 and 5080.
Give me a VRAM per dollar, please.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah, but this thing is exciting because it AMD said they're not going to worry about the high-end market anymore because most people buy $700 or less graphics cards.
right.
It's not worth spending the time and money, especially when they're just going to get their clocks cleaned. Last gen was probably their best effort at that. And the 7900 XTX was a great card. It's just it got its clock cleaned and ray tracing and, upscaling. And otherwise, it actually tied the 4080 and sometimes beat the 4080 in every other category as far as performance goes. And then there's But yeah, so like my questions are, okay, you guys have the performance and you have the price. You now need to get the feature set and the stability that your competitor has. I think this price is awesome. Especially for the 9070 XT, the 5070 Ti competitor. Because if you're price shopping in that category, $150 discount is huge. That is
Yeah.
a huge. That will make someone think about AMD instead. If you're already looking at 5070 Ti, that's the performance you're looking for, and that's the category if you're shopping in, and you're like, oh well, I can spend 150. I can save 150 bucks and like get a card that is, actually like just as good in a lot of cases. Huh.
Yeah. I'll say for me
Oh,
personally, when I was shopping around for my current computer, I
mhm,
didn't even consider AMD. The impression I
mhm,
have been given from people who have told me about having AMD cards and their experiences with it is that
mhm.
they either, like you said, were fine with it, or they had enough problems that I wouldn't call myself a computer illiterate person. I'd say I'm a pretty excessively computer literate person by comparison to most,
Mhm.
and that AMD cards, if they don't work good for you, are for people who are more computer literate than me.
Um, I don't know. I think you'd probably be fine. I think a lot of it is a lot of the problems that I've heard about are like, hey, I waited for a driver update and it fixed everything just fine. Or I just I did a fresh install of Windows. It worked fine from there. But it is an annoying pain in the ass that you don't want to put up
Yeah,
with.
it's just like that's
And
a
I
major level of intervention, I feel like. I feel like
well,
that's a I completely reinstalled Windows is so much. The amount of things I would end up doing to get to the point where I consider reinstalling Windows and the level of frustration and tinkering that I would be doing to get there, I'm like, I would die. I would die before that happened.
yeah, and to me, it's not that big a deal. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Offload all my important stuff to my external. Flash it. Great. Come back in an hour. All right, it works. Cool.
I my
Um,
files are too poorly kempt for me to consider that possibility.
wait, your what's too poorly kept? You
My
got up.
files,
Hmm.
my
Oh,
computer is just too poorly organized for me to go, "This is what's important, I'll move it here." I don't know where the important things are. I figure that out when I need them.
Right.
so yeah, like I think that, and a lot of people have that impression, and I think what it is going to take to get rid of that impression is them being significantly cheaper, which they are, at least in terms of that price tier. The 9070 is the same price as the 5070, but it has more VRAM. So, it could be a big win for them either way. And then they have the performance now. It's about matching the other stuff and then doing it for a long period of time. Because a big problem that the AMD has, even that the past two gens, they've been great, is like the amount of people who have or are like willing to take that chance when Nvidia has been stable for so long
Yeah,
is
exactly.
like minor. It's
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 exactly what
like
I thought, is like, I don't wanna deal with anything possibly happening if I'm spending
hmm,
$4,000 on a computer. I'm not I'm not letting anything be wrong.
oh
So I'm not gonna get an AMD card and then suddenly have issues and like, die in the process. I explode, I self-combust, I die.
well, and I do think that part of that though is even when you make a better product, the reputation doesn't necessarily turn. Like AMD is a better CPU now. Like period. Period. Like AMD is killing Intel in terms of performance, in terms of like everything. Like buying a Intel CPU now is like the only way I would recommend it is like if you're forced to via a pre-built. If you are building on your own, I would say, what are you doing? Go buy yourself a Ryzen. And even now, there are people who don't know that yet, that the tide turned about 5 years ago, and they're still buying Intel. You know, like they're still like that's just what they're doing. You know, and that's fine, but if you care about the best performance and most stable performance, Intel's no longer it, and it's like, well, shit, So, yeah. The last thing is supposedly they've been stocking this thing since December.
Okay.
Like AMD has been stocked, so they're hoping to flood the channel and not have the Nvidia issue of not being able to buy one at all.
Right.
Because if you go on Newegg right now, dog, you can't buy a graphics card
Yeah.
from the 50 series. I think that's great because there are a lot of people who are going to build rigs and be like, damn it, I can't get an Nvidia card, but I want to build it now.
It's definitely the more consumer positive move.
Yeah,
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like, I'm gonna be real. If I was building that rig today and I couldn't get a hold of what I was looking for, I'd probably just get a 9070 XT because I can.
Yeah,
sure.
I
can easily go buy one.
Yeah,
it can be purchased.
Yeah. Versus like going on, especially you factor in where these scalper prices are. The fact that the cheapest scalped card I found is $500 to $700 over MSRP.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, hey. Interesting thing also, AMD is currently offering a promotion where if you buy a graphics card or CPU from them between now and it looks like May 24th, you get a free copy of Monster Hunter Wilds.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh. And you're telling me these cards display graphics?
Yep.
They certainly try in Wilds.
It really. Yep. Yeah, Wilds has a problem where it's super CPU bound.
Yes.
That's the problem with Wilds. But yeah, basically the entire market is like sitting here praying to God that the 9070 XT lives up to its promise and is this tide turn because people are just sick of Nvidia's shit.
Right.
In short.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to the numbers that come out from the third party peeps. See what comes of that, because it would be cool to see people making a graphics card that is priced and there's like they're concentrating on people who play video games, because Nvidia is not going to be that.
I mean, yeah, the thing with Nvidia is they have so much legacy. They have so much legacy as being like the people that it's kind of be hard. AMD has just an uphill battle. Like they have a big uphill battle, and it's going to take a while.
Right.
Is the short version.
It is what it is, but it's laid out before them now. Yo, dog, let's talk about some consoles, just briefly.
Consoles.
We
actually for